All right, welcome to another video from the Chart Readers. Hey, if you have not already, check out the website, chartreaders.com. I have all my videos in a nice format, and then at the very bottom, you can sign up for a free weekly email. I'll be actually sending this week's today. So what are we going to do today? We are going to do the inverses, okay? A lot of people don't talk about these, and I'll kind of explain why, but when the moments are right, these are very important tickers to have in your back pocket. So what are we going to do? The same thing we always do, right? We're going to look at the daily and the weekly. We have our 5 moving averages. I have a couple horizontal and support lines that I do manually draw. And then we do close it out with the MACD and the RSI, our lower indicators below. So again, I have about 6 tickers here. 2 are NASDAQ inverse, 2 are S&P 500 inverse, and then 2 are Dow Jones inverses, okay? NASDAQ has done the worst of all 3. S&P's kind of in the middle, and the Dow's been pretty strong. So you can kind of play it a couple different ways. If you think the Dow is going to catch up and start doing worse, hey, maybe it's a good time to look into the Dow ones, right? If you think NASDAQ's still going to be the worst of them all, hey, maybe look at the NASDAQ ones, right? And if you actually think the market's going to start doing well, just stay away from these, right? So that's how you use these inverses. Sorry, my cat's at the door. Give me 1 second. No, get out of here. Sorry about that. Okay. So we're going to start with SQQQ. This is arguably the most known one. And QQQ, you can definitely look up that ticker. QQQ is very much NASDAQ and tech heavy. So this is a short on QQQ. And the one good thing about this is, look, to actually short stocks, you need a margin account, which requires, I think, like 25 grand minimum. And some people can't do that, right? So you're actually able to buy a short ticker just like you would buy Apple, Tesla, whatever, right? And a lot less risk with that. So there's a lot of good in these inverses for the average trader who doesn't have a margin account. So that said, look, what's happened, right? I actually made this video around the 2nd or the 3rd, and we've basically been trading in this channel here, right? A channel is 2 horizontal lines, and basically in this right here, there was a bit of a scare. Looks like the 20 did catch us, and then we've basically just been riding the 8 the whole time, right? Obviously, you can see Thursday was a very positive day for the NASDAQ, and it was a very negative day here. Friday was a very negative day for the NASDAQ, a very positive day here, right? +8. So I think NASDAQ was -2, right? So you can see this one almost was 4x that day. But again, a couple things to note. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. This thing's been riding the 8 pretty well, right? Couple scares here, couple scares here, both of them caught by the 20, which is really nice. Actually gives you a little bit of kind of a reassurance that the 20 is also a good support. And look, again, just the green line keeps going up. And hey, I mean, like I said, NASDAQ's been a little iffy the last 2 weeks. That's why we're kind of sitting in this channel. Friday's action broke the 64.01 line. Right? There was an attempt here. There was an attempt here. There was actually an open here and a hard fail, but looks like the 8 saved it and then kind of a bounce up. So we have now actually broken this. If we get confirmation, this could be pretty interesting. And when I go to the weekly, you'll see the lines up. I have no lines down because honestly, these moving averages are pretty much our bottoms, right? I guess I can draw one more here. I don't think it would hurt. But nonetheless, this is going to be a support line, this is going to be a support line, and this is going to be a support line. Also, this is a good cluster, right? I always say it's hard to break clusters up. Clusters are also real good bounce points, right? It's hard to lose a cluster as well. So honestly, this is looking pretty good, right? We break a line, green over red. It kind of looks like green wants to take it, and this is still pretty low. If this wants to go up, it can definitely still go up. Looking at the weekly, man, that's nice right there, and that's definitely taking off. This is in the positive, and on the weekly, like I said, obviously we broke it on the daily, but look at why it's a line, right? It was the high of this week before we crashed. We have now made that flying V back up, and we've now surpassed it, right? So that to me is bullish. Sorry, excuse me. From there, look, the next line up is 72, obviously going onward. And then I have this golden line up here because if it breaks 126, which look, is a very far ways away, it's definitely 2x away, right? So a lot needs to happen. But if it gets over that line, I mean, it's almost a gap up to basically the 200, which is the last one. Trust me, a lot needs to happen for that. However, it's on my radar, right? And again, I mentioned this in a chat with another YouTube video. I forgot which one, but look, set yourself up with a plan. All right, maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't, but hey, it at least gives me something to look for. And if anything happens, I'm obviously going to adjust, right? But SQQ on the weekly, that's a real nice setup on the weekly. The daily doesn't look too overbought, right? It's not like we're in the high 70s or even 80s, right? So there's a real good chance we can have a pretty strong week on SQQQ coming up. Again, this one was NASDAQ. The next one, SDOW, is obviously Dow Jones, right? So again, this is a short of the Dow 30. The Dow 30 is the NASDAQ industrial average. So again, look, a little bit different from the last one, but not too different, right? So again, we've been riding the 8 pretty well. There was 2 bounces on the 20, almost the exact same thing. And then again, the Dow Jones did so well on Thursday. I'll be honest, it fooled me. I sent a chat on my last market video because honestly, I thought that the Thursday Dow was so strong that it might have made a move to bring this down here. And I'll be honest with you. Again, I'm actually not going to say the next thing, but nonetheless, I was very surprised to see the bad Friday. And it really kind of it gave me a little extra confidence that these inverses might be something. Now look, there's still a lot that needs to happen for this, right? It definitely needs to confirm and get over here, right? There is a cluster. There's definitely 2 lines, a green and an orange, right on each other, right? So it's not going to be easy to get up. But if it does, it might make a run to this line, if not higher, right? So definitely not as pretty as the NASDAQ. And that's kind of what I started the video with, right? You can play the Dow Jones if you feel it's going to be a catch-up week this week, or maybe you just stay with the NASDAQ ones and just kind of play it a little bit safer on this inverse side, right? Your call completely. I think how Monday plays out will be real indicative of how the week plays out and really how the Dow sits with the other 2, okay? Nonetheless, look, we are under the 8, and you know my golden rule, my rule number 1, right? Get over the 8 before it's worth our hard-earned money, right? So let's see how the Dow opens. But again, these are very different RSI and MACDs. These are actually not good ones, right? We want green over red. These are both red over green. I like that this one's still positive, but again, let's see how the Dow opens on Monday. Look, we are still technically over the 8 on the weekly, right? Definitely made a run to try to break this 40 line. Obviously failed it, right? This was a good 2-week fail. We're still over this. And look, I don't talk about candle shapes too often, but this is a really important one. This is a doji, okay? There were moments where people thought this thing was going to fly. There were moments where people thought this thing was going to tank. And it pretty much stayed relatively in the same place during the entire week in 5 days. It didn't move much, right? It didn't do this full up, full down. It just kind of did this, right? So a lot of uncertainty, okay? And next week might show what that uncertainty, on how that uncertainty unfolds, okay? So the doji is really one of the only shapes I talk about. It's on the weekly. We're still over the 8. We're still over the 100. We're still over all of these, right? And just kind of zooming out as well. Again, I have a couple here, right? So next one up would be 47. But really what matters a lot is this 40. And I'll actually put one more right here on the top of this weekly candle. That 43, I think, will be pretty important as well. So, and look at that. It was that day. Okay, perfect. So this was the SDOW one. We are now going to come into SPXS. And again, this is a bear S&P 500, okay? So this one is, we've now done one of each after this one, right? Again, pretty much been sitting in this channel. This one actually looks very identical to the NASDAQ one, the SQQQ. Actually loses the 20 here, right? So all of the other ones have actually stayed above the 20. This one lost it, nonetheless recovers. Again on the 20 recovers. The Thursday and Friday back to back. Here we're actually over the 8, but we're not over our line or that peak from a few days ago, right? So still a little better than the Dow one because we are over the 8, right? Rule number 1 is get over the 8. Rule number 2 is confirmation. So I do still need one more day to really hold this 8. And I can actually, I'm assuming really, we might be making a move at this 29.66, right? Trying to crack 30. So I could see that happening. Really, these aren't great, but again, you can kind of see, I think, green over red on the MACD. Obviously, it's insignificant, but I'll say it's at least positive. And you know I like the RSI a little bit more. Not over quite yet, but again, a day or two I think might make this move pretty well. Same doji, not as loud, but look, a few better things, right? Still over the 8, still over all of them. Did better than last week, right? So last week obviously ended here. We did better than the open as well, which is really nice. And then we're over half of this bad boy, right? So 50% is like roughly here, give or take. Again, we're over that. So this was a positive technical week for this guy here, which is bad for the S&P 500, right? So again, looks like this is starting to curve up. This is definitely still up. Positive, I'm liking it, right? So again, the NASDAQ looks the worst, S&P 500 is in the middle, Dow is kind of the strongest as of last week, and that definitely was indicative of that first round we did, right? So I'm going to do another 3, basically another each of them. So starting with the Dow, again, this is an ultra short. There's a few differences, right? So this is DXD, this is SDOW, okay? Look, pretty much the same chart. This one's sitting at 38 bucks, DXD. This one's sitting at 54 bucks, right? So sometimes it's a matter of like, what can your bank afford? Sometimes, look, just try to see which one's maybe over the 8, which one's closer to the line, which one has better MACD and RSIs, right? That's why we do the review of multiples. So just look, if I had an infinite amount of money, I would buy all of these and just sit on my couch, right? I've got a limited fund. I want to buy the best of the 6, maybe the 2 best of the 6, right? So that's why we look at these and we play accordingly, right? But again, DXD is going to look exactly like SDOW, and it should. If it doesn't, that would be that would be freaky, and I would for sure adjust my strategy, right? But again, look, still under technically, definitely a recovered day. This one actually fell a lot harder on Thursday, right? And again, this one's ultra short. This one is ultra pro short, right? So again, I don't really know. I'll be honest with you, I don't really know. I just kind of Google these. I Google, Dow Jones inverses. You'll find way more than these two. Google yourself, NASDAQ inverses. You'll find more than the 2 I'm showing, right? And look at them and put your money in the best one, or stay away from all of them if you think there's a recovery, right? I kind of don't. But hey, this is not financial advice, right? But again, this is looking the same as the other one. Coming into the weekly, lost this line, right? I actually do remember the U happening on the other one. This same doji that we talked about, I think on the S&P 500 one, if I'm not mistaken, maybe it was the Dow one, right? But nonetheless, doji that did fail under, but still technically over all those lines, right? So the next one on the list is SDS. Again, ultra short 500. Look, this one's technically over the line and over the 8. I don't think the other one was. SPXS. This is the other S&P 500. Look, this one missed the line, right? So that's an interesting difference right there. I'll say they both still look pretty good. This one kind of looks better, right? Because it crossed the line, still over, and they both kind of had the same lower indicator below, right? That's why we do this. That's why we look at multiples, right? So I would say SDS looks better than SPXS if you're looking to buy an inverse of the 500, right? Again, I imagine the weekly is going to look the same, right? It's pretty much this. I'm going to zoom out for the other one, SPXS. Boom, exact same thing. This one just has a line up here that it didn't break, right? So that's why we do this, right? Look at a bunch of the same ones and put your money in where it should sit, right? I'll zoom out real quick as well. You'll see a bunch of lines up here. Interesting. So the 200 I think is a little lower here, SPXS. It's a little lower, actually. So couple ways to play that. I kind of always use this as a big wall. Man, if it gets over that, things can get crazy, but it's a little hard to get over that, right? So just an interesting tidbit that the 200 was lower. Nonetheless, like I said, this does look technically better. Again, the weekly does look well. Again, the last of the inverses, and again, this one's the second. This one is a bear on technology. Obviously, NASDAQ is heavy technology, right? So that's why this one's an inverse of the NASDAQ. Again, just Google yourself NASDAQ inverse tickers, and you will find way more than just these two. And do the same review, I hope, right? Nonetheless, riding the 8 real well. Thursdays fail, Fridays rebound, still sitting over everything, breaking a line, breaking the 8. You know, I'm hoping you see the repetitiveness, right? And that's good. That means you're learning, right? But these all look pretty much the same. And if you know these videos well enough, that's good. You want things to do the same. Sometimes they're all doing bad things and it's sad. But when they're all doing positive things, it should be somewhat reinforcement that, hey, maybe this is where I should keep my eye on, right? So again, I really hope you're learning. I sincerely appreciate all the time people are putting into this. And thanks for subscribing if you have. Otherwise, again, just thanks for all your time.